The lower these rates get for trucking companies, for owner operators out there, the more and more I am convinced that most likely brokers are going to have to make a change in the way that they approach their carriers. Okay, now I understand that there is a sour taste in some brokers' mouth because of some outlying carriers that maybe took very much advantage of what happened during 2021 with the rates that we saw. In these types of markets where we're past rock bottom, the rates are pretty darn bad all across the board. Whether it's reefers, dry vans, step decks, flatbeds, it's a rough go at the moment. Brokers need to do a better job of understanding what trucking companies have to go through, okay, in terms of staying in business, okay? So, not just from the regulations and compliance side of the equation, but also because of the fact that they also have to pay for a lot of expenses that brokers don't have and don't have to. Okay. So brokers do need to understand the operating cost of trucks. I promise you, if you are a broker, you will become a better quoter, estimator, and better overall service provider for your shippers if you do practice this way of thinking and this way of quoting. So what I like to do is I like to go out to my trucking companies in the areas where I do have freight, and I like to speak to them about quoting on the lanes that I have, and specifically for the type of equipment that I have lanes for, and I take them as a trusted advisor of mine, as a trusted consultant almost, okay, as to where those rates need to be. Okay, I am not on the boat that every broker in the universe should know exactly what the rate is the moment they're given a lane. There's just way too many factors that affect pricing. Okay, what works well in March isn't going to work so well in July. What works so well in December isn't going to be the same in April or May. Okay, so you have to be able to quote according to what's going on with capacity, what's available, but also understand that expenses are a real thing for trucking companies. They have their variable expenses that change month over month, and they have their fixed expenses that they have to pay every single month. And the list is very long in terms of what these expenses are, but brokers need to do a better job of understanding. I see way too many brokers at the moment that are pretty much you know, quoting blindly when it comes to shipments. Okay. And it's not even that they don't understand where the pricing needs to be. A lot of them, quite frankly, don't care. They don't care because even if it's one and out for a lot of their carriers that they use, in other words, they practice more of a transactional, for lack of a better term, relationship, a transactional type of business model where they'll do a one and out with carriers. They'll find the cheapest carrier in the area. They'll give them the load. They'll load them up, go deliver. The next thing you know, a few months down the road, as this is going on, they've actually used so many more carriers than they should have on the same lanes. The reason this happens is because of the fact that there is always going to be cheap carriers also that take freight that's at very cheap, low level rates. But if you educate yourself as a broker, you will even avoid giving your loads for such carriers. This actually harms the business. This ruins uh, logistics in terms of sustainable rates. And this is where we get these anomalies of super low rates, like below rock bottom. And we also get the super high rates when the tables turn. So instead of having a sustainable market, which you can, you as a freight broker need to go to your trucking companies and have them become your trusted advisors for the loads that you may have in any area of North America. Okay. Now, you do have the luxury as a freight broker because your expenses, your overhead expenses, and all expenses are a lot lower than a trucking company's. You do actually have the freedom to get shippers that have freight going anywhere, whether it's the Yukon territories, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho. Yes, I'm using the vacuum states, the ones that have a lot of loads that are going in, but not enough stuff coming out. And even if they do have stuff coming out, the competition is rather fierce, and there's a lot of low balling that goes on. Okay, but if people restrained themselves in taking cheap freight, both from the broker side and the carrier side, we would have a different picture painted um, ever since the 2021 high rate fiasco went on. Okay, so since that ended, there has been a lot of carriers and a lot of freight brokers that are taking loads below the value of what they need to go at. And this is absolutely hurting the industry. This is absolutely ruining what we have going on in terms of uh, carriers not being able to participate in this kind of market, owner operators shutting the doors and joining the big boys, right? And the big boys are going to be quiet because this works for them, right? This is something that they love. Kind of shut the valves on the little guy and be prosperous in their business model. So from their perspective, they're not going to come to the rescue of the small mom and pop shop companies that run North America. And mind you, you guys are large in numbers. Okay, the mom and pop shop companies are the ones with 6 trucks or less, 10 trucks or less, 15 trucks or less. These are your small organizations, your small, family run businesses that are trying to survive in this market, but they are getting a little bit suffocated by the rates that are going on, and they're trying to survive the best they can. Now, livable rates, we all want livable rates to happen for carriers going outbound from where they're starting and inbound back to where they need to begin back up from. Okay, so if you have a load going from Chicago to Dallas, you need to have livable rates. And then, of course, from Dallas back up to Chicago area or Chicagoland area, you got to look at the rates as sustainable, right? It's no good for you to take a load for $2 a mile going to Dallas and finding a load back for $2 a mile. You will not be profitable. You will not be. It's not sustainable pricing. You have to understand where that pricing needs to be, and you brokers out there need to get with trucking companies, sit down, get with people that know what they're doing in pricing, and you will be able to tell. I promise you, there is a big difference between someone that knows how to price out loads and someone that doesn't. Okay, I was using in this week's or this weekend's, excuse me, training that we do. That's about to start here in about a half hour. The training that we do, we teach the dispatchers in regards to rates and how to price and how to quote, how to negotiate with brokers as well. So we are trying to make a difference in that level, but we also can see that there's a lot of you know disparity when it comes to understanding where these rates need to be and what the loads are being taken for. So trucking companies, for example, out of the Toronto, Ontario, Canada market, going down towards Texas, there are carriers taking loads for $650. Let that sink in. $650. And they are taking these loads, they're going down to southern Texas. They're delivering it to Laredo, Brownsville, El Paso, regardless, Del Rio, Eagle Pass. They will deliver it to these places and then they'll pick up a load going back to Canada for $6,000 or $7,000. At the end of the day, that's still a very rough average on the round trip, okay? But they are taking advantage of the immigration system in Canada and also taking advantage of, drivers that don't understand the pricing in North America and that are behind the wheel because they're on a work permit visa. And this is hurting the industry as well. So we have to play a role to put a stop to this kind of garbage. Okay. And the way we have to do that as brokers and you as freight brokers, for all of you that may watch this till the end, is you have to find the trusted advisors, the ones that understand the market, that understand how much a bolt and a screw and an oil filter and whatever costs, and that price according to their expenses. So from that perspective, they know what they're doing, and we have to find those type of trucking companies and cultivate those relationships, and then get our pricing to our shippers in the right manner. The more freight brokers that participate in this manner, the better off our entire industry will be. And these type of bad feelings, connotations about freight brokers will eventually stop. Okay. And they will eventually dissipate. But we have to be strong in that manner. There has to be a collaborative effort from freight brokers and trucking companies to get the prices where they need to be.